In this video, we're going to take a look at simplifying our fractions with I. So we don't want to leave I in the denominator because I is the square root of -1, and we do not want square roots in the denominator. Okay, so we would use the conjugate to simplify fractions. So to do this first fraction, I'm going to put the denominator in parentheses, and I'm going to multiply it by the same thing but opposite sign. So it'll be 2 plus 3i. And then with fractions, whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 plus 3i. Okay, these parentheses are important because it shows that I need to do FOIL here. If I didn't do the parentheses, it would just look like just 3i goes into the parentheses. Okay, so for the top, I'm going to distribute 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And then plus 4 times 3 is 12i. For the bottom, when you do FOIL, so I do 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3i is plus 6i, 2 times -3i is minus 6i, -3i times 3i is minus 9i squared. So that -3 times +3 gives us the -9, I times I gives us I squared. Okay, the reason why we use the conjugate is because this will always happen. Your i's will cancel. So I have 4 minus 9, and I'm going to replace I squared with -1. So this is like 4 minus a -9, right? 9 times -1, which would be 4 plus 9, which is 13. So I end up with a whole number on the bottom, and that one is done. Okay, the next one we have I in the top and the bottom. So I'm going to multiply by my conjugate, so I put the whole thing in parentheses, and I do the same thing, but flip the sign. So I'm going to multiply by 2 minus I in the top and bottom. In the top, I'm going to distribute 4i. So this will become 4i times 2 is 8i, and then 4i times -i is minus 4i squared, because we have the I times I, and then the 4 times the negative. Okay, I can reduce this more because I squared is equal to -1, so this is like 8i minus 4 times -1, or 8i minus -4. So on the top, we have minus and negative, it'll be a +4, and then that standard form, you have the real number first. So I'm going to have 4 plus 8i. So I just wrote my real number first and then imaginary second. So that's the top of my fraction. On the bottom, I'll do FOIL. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times -i minus 2i. 2 times +i plus 2i. I times -i minus I squared. So I know I did it right because my i's cancel. And then I have 4 minus, and then I squared equals -1. So 4 minus -1, or 4 plus 1 is 5. So this will be 4 plus 8i over 5. So be careful that you don't just make this 4 minus 1 to get 3, because it's minus that I squared, so it's minus -1, or 4 plus 1. Okay, so when we have just I, so if I have just a number with I or just I don't need to flip any signs. I just multiply by the same thing. So I'm going to multiply by I in the bottom and by I in the top. 3 times I is 3i. I times I is I squared. Okay, and the reason why this works is because I squared becomes a real number. So I have 3i over I squared is -1. So it's okay to have a negative in the denominator, just we don't want I in the denominator because I is the square root of -1. So I'm done with that one. Next one, I'll just multiply by I in the top and bottom. So it doesn't even matter if there's a number with it. I just multiply by I. So 5 times I is 5i. 2i times I is 2i squared. This will become 2 times negative 1, and then that will become a negative 2. So I have 5i over negative 2, and that's my answer. Okay, so that's how you would simplify fractions using the conjugates, and that's similar to problems 15 through 18.